In the past, many television blogs have delivered anime to the West. Foxbox, CW4Kids, Nicktoons, the list goes on. Although they were good out of all the action blogs on television at the time, Toonami was the most well-known and most beloved. In this look back, we will look into Toonami's history. We will explore how it gained its popularity, what shows they aired, and what the future holds for the action block. Settle in, because Toonami Squad and Damstar Productions is proud to present Retro Look Back Toonami.
This broadcast is intended solely for the enjoyment of our audiences. Any rebroadcast, or retransmission without express written consent of Toonami and Cartoon Network is strictly prohibited.
In 1996, Mike Laszlo, the vice president of programming on Cartoon Network, hired Sean Akins to Cartoon Network from TNT to create an action animation block which replaced a very short-lived action block called the Power Zone. Around the same time, Sean enlisted Jason and Marco to help create the new block. When coming up with a name, they took the word Toon from cartoon and Nami from tsunami to make the name Toonami. The name was suggesting that the block is a tidal wave of animated shows. Then in 1997, Cartoon Network launched Toonami on March 17th on St. Patrick's Day, with Moltar as its CGI host. The idea of having Moltar as the host of Toonami was Mike Laszlo's idea. He thought that if they have a recognizable host, it would make things a lot easier for the viewer. However, the voice of Moltar, Clay Martin Croker, didn't quite understand what Toonami was at the time, since Moltar on Toonami was completely different from the Moltar that's in Space Ghost Coast to Coast. But as time would move on, he would understand the impact he left on Toonami. In addition, the decision for using CGI instead of 2D animation was Sean's idea, since at the time, CG animation was a new frontier of animation. What makes Toonami different from other blocks is that they would connect the audience with their speeches and video game reviews. And it's also about this. A lot of the speeches on Toonami are regarding everyday life situations and how they apply to the programs on the block. Moltar and Tom would deliver one of the best inspirational speeches, whether it would be about bullying, haters, anger, and a lot more. Along with the speeches, Toonami has aired reviews of many popular video games. The hosts would score games on a 1 to 10 rating system. The rating system was originally 1 to 5 until 2000. Some games would occasionally break that rule by not having a score because they have not completed the game. Most of these game reviews can be found on YouTube. Unfortunately, not every game review that Toonami did is on YouTube. A good example would be the Final Fantasy VII game review, which is currently unavailable. If you know someone who has that review or others that may not be on YouTube, be sure to send them to Toonami Digital Arsenal. So, with that said, what shows did Toonami air? Well, believe it or not, they did not air a whole lot of anime when it first started. Their only anime was Voltron.
Voltron, Defender of the Universe.
Moltar, Defenders of the Universe.
And the rest were American action cartoons like Thundercats.
Thundercats! Ho!
Cartoon Roulette, which had a number of Hanna-Barbera-owned cartoon titles that would air at random, so you would be seeing a different show each day. And those shows consist of Birdman, Galaxy Trio, Space Ghost, the Herculoids, and Flincher's Superman cartoons. They would air Cartoon Roulette twice a day. And finally, they had The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. Now, this was a show that would be consistently on Toonami's lineup from the beginning of Toonami till the Tom 1 era. They tried to replace it with Beast Wars, but it only worked for like 1 week, but still they kept Johnny Quest for a while. Along with Robotech being added to the block in 1998, there are 2 shows that helped gain some popularity and viewers. One of them being Sailor Moon. series follows the magical action adventures of a teenage girl who learns of her destiny as the legendary warrior Sailor Moon. She must band together with the other Sailor Scouts to defend the Earth and galaxy. Sailor Moon is one of the longest running magical girl anime series, and it's still popular among fans. My first time watching Sailor Moon was in elementary when one of my friends brought Sailor Moon R the movie to class for movie day. I recall greatly enjoying the movie. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for the series since I can't remember watching it on Toonami. The English adaptations of both the manga and anime series became the first successful shonen title in the United States. In fact, the character of Sailor Moon is recognized as one of the most popular and important female superheroes of all time. Sailor Moon even has its own dedicated day called International Sailor Moon Day. In terms of its run on Toonami, they aired only seasons 1 through 4 and played 3 of the movies. Sailor Moon aired on Toonami until 2003 when the television rights expired. Sadly, the series hasn't appeared on American television since then. During its absence from television broadcasts, Viz Media acquired the rights to Sailor Moon in 2014. As well as a new series called Sailor Moon Crystal, which is a faithful readaptation of the original Sailor Moon manga. Viz also redubbed the original Sailor Moon anime with a brand new voice cast that includes Stephanie Sheh, Michelle Ruff, and Johnny Bosch. I recommend this anime to any anime fans who haven't watched Sailor Moon. You can find it on Blu-ray and DVD. You can also find it on Hulu along with Sailor Moon Crystal, which has 2 seasons dubbed in English. Around the same year Sailor Moon was added to the Toonami lineup, this next show is considered one of the greatest action animes of all time, and that show is Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z. Dragon, rock the dragon, come get Dragon Ball Z. Dragon, rock the Dragon Ball Z. Dragon, rock the dragon, come get Dragon, rock the Dragon Ball Z. Dragon, rock the dragon, come get
The show revolves around Goku, Earth's strongest warrior, and his friends. As the Earth faces new threats, each one greater than the last, it's up to Goku and the Z Fighters to ascend to new levels of power in order to defend the planet from the most powerful beings in the universe. DBZ is arguably the best long-running action anime of all time. This is the anime I've watched on Toonami all the time. I remember the first time I watched Dragon Ball Z was when Goku fights Frieza, which was back in elementary. Despite its success, Dragon Ball Z has a fairly rocky journey to the west. In fact, Sally Betty from the Wall Street Journal wrote an article about Dragon Ball Z and talks about how violent the show gets even after being edited for content by Funimation. Despite the controversies, Dragon Ball Z was a major success in the United States ratings, making it the highest rated program ever at the time on Cartoon Network. When Toonami ran DBZ, they originally broadcast the Ocean Studios English dub in August 31st, 1998, which only had 2 seasons dubbed. Then Funimation produced their own English dub with their in-house voice cast and replaced Ron Reiserman's soundtrack from the first 2 dubbed seasons with Bruce Falconer's soundtrack for the dub. Toonami ran the only 2 seasons of the Ocean dub, then aired all 291 episodes of Funimation's dub, along with 9 movies and 2 OVAs. Toonami also aired 2 other Dragon Ball shows, such as Dragon Ball, which is about Goku as a kid and shows how he became Earth's strongest hero, and Dragon Ball GT, which isn't canon to the Dragon Ball series. DBZ would rerun on Toonami until 2008. Then on April 5th, 2009, Fuji TV premiered Dragon Ball Z Kai, which is a HD remaster and recut of the original Dragon Ball Z anime. Funimation worked on the English dub, and it was broadcast on multiple networks, such as Nicktoons, which it first premiered on May 24th, 2010, then on the CW's Toonzai, which was renamed to The Vortex. Between Nicktoons and The Vortex, they both aired an edited format of the show. Then Dragon Ball Z actually returned to Toonami with the airing of Dragon Ball Z Coolest Revenge on May 24th, 2014 at midnight, and then on November 1st, 2014, during the extra hour added by daylight savings. Then the uncut version of Dragon Ball Z Kai premiered on Toonami on November 8th, 2014, and finally we get the Buu Saga with Dragon Ball Z Kai The Final Chapters, which premiered on January 7th, 2017. In recent times, Toei Animation has produced 2 DBZ films for theatrical release: Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods and Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F. Finally, there's the brand new series currently airing in Japan called Dragon Ball Super, which takes place before the 7-year time skip at the end of the Dragon Ball story. You can now watch Dragon Ball Super on Adult Swim at 8 p.m. and then on Toonami proper on 11:30 Saturday nights. It also inspired some fan-made creations such as Team 4 Star's DBZ parody called Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Check it out when you have the chance. You can find the episodes on their YouTube channel. If you haven't watched Dragon Ball Z, I highly recommend watching it, whether it be the original series or Kai. You can find both on DVD and Blu-ray. You can also find Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z on Hulu. However, Dragon Ball only has the first 5 episodes in English, the rest are subbed. DBZ always has some episodes in English, but it's never fully available with the dub. You can catch Dragon Ball Super and DBZ Kai The Final Chapters on Adult Swim's Toonami on Saturday nights at 11:30 and midnight. And you can stream it at adultswim.com when it's available on the Toonami stream. All licensed Dragon Ball shows can also be found on Funimation's streaming service, Funimation Now. With both Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z added to the Toonami lineup, both shows would now be consistent on the schedule along with Johnny Quest and Thundercats. Toonami then added 2 new shows in their lineup, Super Friends and Reboot. Movies were also broadcasted on Toonami such as Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, Johnny Quest vs. the Cyber Insects, Dragon Ball Z The Tree of Might, and Dragon Ball Z The World's Strongest. Before the Moltar era came to a close, there were 2 show marathons. The Lunar Eclipse, which played Sailor Moon from 11:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. And the second marathon was the DBZ 20XL, which played DBZ from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Then the next day, they aired the 3 DBZ movies. There is one more thing to mention that happened in the Moltar era, and that is the first ever sweepstakes.
Hey, you feel lucky, punk?
50 lucky winners, the first ever to receive Toonami gear, which included the first ever Toonami shirt, jacket, and ball cap. All the viewer had to do was call a 1-800 number during Toonami, and they would pick 50 winners to get all that free swag. If you're one of the lucky 50 winners, contact either me on Twitter at Famstar64 or Toonami Squad, and be sure to include a picture so we can see it, and who knows, you could see it in the next episode of Retro Look Back Toonami. Alright, with that said, here are my thoughts on the Moltar era. It was pretty hard to remember if I ever did watch Toonami during the Moltar era, since at the time, I didn't even have a cable subscription since I was a very young kid back then. With the Moltar era coming to a close, a new era would take us to the new millennium.
May your oven stay forever lit.